stuff. And I started thinking about this in relation to just the TV antiheroes generally. And prototype typical TV antihero is, a middle-aged white guy who's got a criminal secret life, right?
Sure.
But I was thinking about how and the crime stuff seems so like essential to that. Except I was thinking about how if I'm doing the great TV antiheroes with like Tony and Walter White and so forth, like Don Draper is up there,
Yeah.
despite the fact that he does not. I guess there's some fraud involved in his double life, but it's not
Yeah, not
the way of Walter White or Tony Soprano.
no,
Yeah,
it's not certainly not any kind of a crime that's going to like really hurt anybody.
yeah, but he is living in fear of being exposed nonetheless.
Oh, sure.
Um, And then I look at somebody else like Jax Teller from Sons of Anarchy, which is a framework punching bag that we trot out quite a bit out here. But like, why is he not doesn't feel like of the same lineage? And I think it's the difference being that the crime is not as important to what makes these characters compelling as the double life. Um,
Yeah.
and Jax Teller is not pretending to be anything but a gang leader,
He
So
has no double life. He's Jax Teller.
right, as opposed to Dexter or Don Draper, whatever that are, and I think that's what makes them fundamentally compelling and relatable. Even as The Sopranos is incredibly specific about the milieu that it's operating in, and like the character of Tony is very idiosyncratic, but he also comes off as this weirdly like American everyman type. He is
Oh yeah.
stands in for something there, and why he's relatable to anybody. Even women, as unfriendly as this show can be to women. Uh, that I think everybody can relate to that. We all have a sense that we don't get to be our full selves and everywhere. We have to be a different version of ourselves at work and with our parents and with our spouses and with our friends or whatever. And what the Sopranos, even as like the first of these shows, like did better than any of them is that Tony's living like way more than a double life. He's living like a sextuple life. That
Oh, for sure.
he's he's not just like a gangster and a family man, but he's also like a husband to Carmel at the same time that he's a boyfriend to his
To
various gumas,
right. Yeah, and
and
even
how like
a patient to
even
Melfi. I mean,
yeah, and he's showing more sides. He's like he can be honest with her in a way he can't be with any of the other people, but it's
oh
still
yeah.
not fully honest.
No.
And he can be honest with Carmel in a way that he can't with a lot of other people, but it's still not fully honest. And like even like Carmel and the Gumars know about each other, but he still has to like work around the specifics and like downplay it. That presented to Carmela like that. Oh, there's no like emotional component to any of this. That it's just I'm just banging the strippers at the bang. You don't need to worry about anything. But
Yeah.
really, he's like carrying on relationships for years at a time with like their Russian girl and whatever. And with the girlfriends, he is sort of like not necessarily tell them this maybe, but let them believe that his marriage is worse than it is, and he kind of hates his wife, and that they're the real one.
Well, when you kind of bring up that there's the episode this season with Juliana Margulies, and it's kind of
Yeah,
interesting how there's an instance where she's game to basically have this affair, but he really won't go through with it, and how that kind of gets him angry and makes him even angrier at Carmela for the fact that he's not able to go through with it. So it's like it's all these different lies, and this way of thinking that he's always had is all kind of turned, it sort of flips upside down, and that's in that storyline at least.
yeah, and it ties into the just the lying to everybody and yourselves and everything that all the different layers of lies that Tony juggles that we now just sort of we understand them without having to have them really explained to us. Like even he's a dad to his kids, but
Hmm.
yeah, they know about his quote unquote secret life, but he still has to like hide all the
Sure.
particulars of that from them.
Yeah.
And he's especially the later seasons too. They've gotten really good at also portraying how he's like still has a desire to just kind of like be one of the guys at work, but he's also a boss, and being the
Yeah.
guy's boss fundamentally changes his relationship to everybody. With possible exception of Silvio. I mean, even that it does, but he's I think the one who
Well,
he has the least clashes with
he seems to have
as an
more
underling.
contempt as now in these episodes for, like, obviously Christopher and Polly,
Oh yeah,
and the people that he just kind of now just sees as total fuck ups. He just
yeah,
he just doesn't have the time for them anymore.
yeah. They're just pains in his balls increasingly. I mean,
Yeah,
Christopher. That's we'll talk about that more in the next season.
sure, sure. And even with Paulie
Yeah,
in the last batch of episodes, they have a kind of a great episode together.
yeah, yeah.
But it just seems like this is kind of the point in the series where that's becoming more evident, where he just has zero fucks to give for these guys.
That's right. And even the stuff with New York, I guess, plays into that. That in this season especially and last season too, but how Tony can be a dictator within his own crew, but he's also a vassal to the New York mob, where he
Oh
is
yeah,
like, can't really. He's a boss, but boss of Jersey, um, and all of that. Just it, it's a more elaborate set of contradictions than like you have Vic Mackey, who's a bad cop pretending to be a good cop, or even like Walter White, who's just he's Scarface. He's pretending to be Mr. Chips still.
yes.
Um, that it's every angle is fraught with these contradictions and lies, and you're like, oh yeah, no wonder he has to go to therapy to try and resolve
Oh,
all of it.
for sure. That's the only place that he can be himself, and not maybe not fully, but more so than with his family or with his mob crew.